To the October 15th regular meeting of Walpole's Board of Selectmen. It's now 7 o'clock, so I call the meeting to order. As we always do, let's stand and cite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, a couple of just housekeeping items first. I want to just say that at 7:45 today on our agenda, where we were scheduled to meet with the legislative delegation, they will not be in tonight because we couldn't get it organized in time. So it looks more like it'll be the November 5th meeting when the legislative delegation will be in, so we'll repost that when that time comes. Second thing is, I would like to take one of our articles of new business out of order tonight. This is the vote on the Omni Properties ask to waive the town's large project safe harbor. And the reason I'd like to take that as first order of business is because I know there's quite a lot of people in the room here who are interested in that. And out of deference to you, I think we'd like to just take that piece of business and deal with it. So could I have a motion to take that out of order?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 5-0-0. Okay, so the request that we have from Omni is to waive our safe harbor provision and allow Omni to take their proposed 300-unit development and turn it into a 420-unit development. Personally, I think that's a bad idea. I think 300 is an awful lot of units to begin with, and I don't know what we can do about that. If anything, we'll work on that. But to go to 420, to me, doesn't sound like a very good idea. Here's the thing, is that the Board of Selectmen actually doesn't have the purview to say yes or no to that so-called waiver. That falls into the purview of the Zoning Board of Appeals by statute. What we can do, and what I would entertain doing tonight, again, given the pleasure of the board, is we can send a note to the zoning board giving them our view, and we can also send a letter to Omni Partners telling them that this is the Board of Selectmen's perspective on this request, and so forth. So what I'd like to do is have some discussion among the board members here to get a sense for where the board is, and then we'll take a vote. So who'd like to go first? Nancy.
I'd like to start by saying that this project at 300 is not in character of South Walpole. This project does not put safety first. This project does not put kids first. This project is not in a highway business or downtown overlay. It is not consistent with our master plan or how we think affordable housing should be addressed here in Walpole. I think that Omni is taking a wet, undesirable piece of property and exploiting the 40B mandate for nothing other than corporate financial gain. I do believe that, as we were told in the first presentation at Town Hall and then was reiterated again at Boyden School, that the gentleman that was making the presentation was very active in his own town of Concord. And I would find it very interesting if he would propose a building like this, a project like that in Concord. That I think before they should be looking at putting one in Walpole, they should do it in Concord. And there's no way that we should be looking at, thinking of, or building 300 or 400 plus anywhere other than Concord before Walpole.
Well said. Other perspectives?
I'm happy to go.
Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say that I'm against the proposal to expand the number above 300, for the reasons that Nancy has mentioned as well. Thank you.
Ben?
It's well documented that we have a large need here in Walpole for affordable homes. And there's a lot of ways that we can build more affordable homes. The Walpole Housing Partnership, of which I'm a member, has been working very diligently over the last 2 years to put in place our housing production plan, to put in place inclusionary zoning bylaws, things that will help Walpole put affordable homes in the areas where it benefits the town, and it benefits our residents, and it benefits our businesses and our schools. This proposed expansion does none of those things, and for those reasons, I would be against it.
Thanks, Ben. David?
No, I for one, you know, I would have liked to at least have heard from them. I didn't get invited to the meeting that was held with the staff. You know, I don't know if I'm in a position to decide one way or another. At this point, I don't even understand how much we're going to be able to stop the 300, and I would want to evaluate that as well. So, you know, I'm not sure that this is a good way to start the discussions and disinviting them to make a presentation. Certainly, there are some aspects of the proposal that we do have control over, that we should be working with the developer to either provide us with, and the neighbors with an open dialogue so we can address their concerns as they build out this project, and perhaps get some off-site improvements regarding traffic and other things. I'm not sure, just, you know, not even allowing them to converse with us is the best way to start that conversation. The neighbors have a lot to be concerned about. You know, this is going to be a large project in the town, and there's very little, unfortunately, that we're going to be able to do to completely stop it. In fact, I don't think we will be able to completely stop it. But we can have a dialogue with the developer that gives us some opportunities to get improvements for the neighborhood, or get it, you know, and traffic improvements to the neighborhood. Look, the developer of the age-qualified village is paying to redesign the intersection at High Plain and East Street. Those are the type of things that we can discuss with the developer to get some improvements to the traffic pattern in South Walpole, and, you know, have an open dialogue. I think just telling them that, you know, don't even bother coming to talk to us, we're just, you know, and explain your position is not the best way to go. So I'm hoping that we, you know, can continue the dialogue with the neighborhood and see what their concerns are and what we can do to leverage some improvements and some other, you know, and addressing the concerns of the neighborhood. Unfortunately, 40B is something that we, you know, we get stuck with. And, you know, it's not much we can do to stop it. I think, you know, there was you know, an expression of, oh, you know, get out the pitchforks and let's fight this, but there's not a lot realistically that we're going to be able to do. But I would like to hear from the neighbors and the town and figure out what we can do to make it less of a burden. How we can find it as a way to make some improvements to the South Walpole area, make some improvements to, you know, whether it's, you know, the post office area or the train state, South Walpole Common there, and the traffic patterns, get them to help us solve some problems we have down there. And again, disinviting them is, I'm not sure is the best way to start that dialogue.
Thank you, David. Any other comments from the board?
Nope.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to direct the town administrator to notify Omni at this time the town is not interested in considering the request to waive a safe harbor.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
401. We also, I think, want to send a note to the ZBA.
Make a motion
Sure.
to send the same letter with our intentions and past vote to the ZBA.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
401. So we will send a letter to Omni telling them that we do not support the waiver of our safe harbor privileges, rights, which is another way of saying we're opposed to going from the 300 to the 420, which is their ask to us. Part of the reason that we need to do this is Omni has actually put the ask to us to get the input from the Board of Selectmen, and that's what we're doing tonight. So we will send them that letter through Jim, and we will also send the ZBA our input. Now, the ZBA, of course, is an independent body, and it will be up to them how they deal with this. My guess is that, given all the concerns that we have about this project, that that's not going to be a huge problem. Then again, I can't speak for the ZBA. Nancy?
One thing I wanted to add is that the town was notified when they were submitting with the state for 300 units. They never came to us before to talk about it, to discuss it, to look at what they could do for South Walpole, to see how it would impact. We were given the same presentation that happened at Boyden School, and we were notified that they were submitting with the state. They weren't going through the town. They weren't coming to us to look to work with us. They're now looking to work with us because they need us to give them permission to go over 300 up to 420. So, that's it.
Agreed. Okay. Anything else on that? Okay, then we're going to move on to our appointments for the evening. Our first meeting appointment at 7 o'clock is a vote to request a common vittler's license for the New England Bar Pizza DBA Crisp, located at 1049 Main Street. Is Robert Carnes here? Hey, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. Could you come up to the microphone for a second? We appreciate you coming in tonight, and it sounds like you got an exciting project. You want to tell us about it?
Sure. So I'm looking to open a casual takeout. I've had a few requests for beer and wine, and possibly going after a liquor license. But initially, I'd really like to keep it simple, do a casual takeout. We will have some seats there for lunch and for an early dinner, but looking to open to the public for 10 a.m. On a daily basis. Sunday, we might open a little earlier, try to catch some of the traffic to the games. But for the most part, pizzas, salads, seafood. I've been in this business a long, long time. It's all I've done, and I still sell to restaurants today. But I'm really looking forward to coming to Walpole and opening up just a real high-quality takeout restaurant.
Awesome. Well, thank you, and we appreciate you coming here tonight.
Bet.
Any questions from Mr. Carnes?
No.
Comments?
No menu ideas, nothing?
Come check it out.
Okay, well, is that it for me?
Yeah, that's
Simple enough.
it. Wait one sec, just wait one second.
Wait till we vote, though.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Before I make a motion, Cindy, is all the paperwork?
Yep, everything's in order.
Very good. I'll make a motion to approve the request for a common victuals license for New England Bar Pizza located at 1049 Main Street.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. 500. Thanks very much, and best of luck to you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Look forward.
Okay, our next appointment, Kurt Tomany, an appointment to Housing Partnership Committee. Is Kurt here? Hi, Kurt. Hi. Could you come up to the podium? First of all, thanks very much for coming here tonight and for volunteering. This is a very important committee that we've got as you listen to that last bit of dialogue. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be on the Housing Partnership Committee.
Sure. So I have lived in Walpole for the last 12 or 13 years. My current job is as a affordable housing manager in Waltham, actually. I manage a low-income senior citizen development of about 260 apartments that I've done for about 8 years. And for the past 20 or so years, that's what I've been doing in Boston and Cambridge and Waltham and in Philadelphia for a little while as well. So affordable housing is kind of very important to me, but in terms of Walpole itself, it is both important, but it's also important, similar to what Mr. Barrett said earlier, that it is done properly. As time has progressed on this project, and I've sort of watched a little bit more and more of it, I thought that maybe I could be of some use to the partnership in providing input and ideas and some of my personal experiences.
Yeah, and certainly your background is nicely suited for being on this board. You could bring quite a bit of knowledge, I think, to the committee. So, other questions for Kurt?
So first of all, Kurt, I really appreciate you putting your name forward for this. I think that one thing that we could definitely use on the housing partnership is, additional experience. People who have kind of been boots on the ground, so to speak, and been involved with these projects and with the maintenance and upkeep and operations of those types of facilities. So thank you again. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Ben.
I'll just say thanks for volunteering. We appreciate that.
David?
And certainly the elderly housing or senior housing is an important aspect of what we're looking for affordability. As I've said before, I think that the town should look seriously at trying to partner with someone to build some affordable senior housing. I think that would be benefit not only many of our seniors who are staying in their house a few years too long.
Yep.
I think it would, add to the fabric of the community.
Thanks, David. Nancy?
I'll add a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to appoint Kurt Tommy to the Housing Partnership Committee with a term to expire 4/1/2020.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
Cindy will be in touch with you with some paperwork to get you officially onboarded. And again, thanks very much for coming forward.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks, Kurt.
Okay, our next appointment is regarding a change of officers and directors for the Texas Roadhouse. There wouldn't be anybody here from the Texas Roadhouse because this request is actually being driven by the company that owns the Texas Roadhouse and all of the various Texas Roadhouse restaurants in Massachusetts. So what they have done is they've petitioned the ABCC to do a change of their board and directors. It does not affect our Texas Roadhouse at all, so you don't see anybody from Texas Roadhouse here tonight. So what the ABCC has asked us to do is simply vote to support what the ABCC has already voted, which is their approval of the holding company changing its board of directors. So, questions on that?
Nope.
Cindy, we're good with all the paperwork here?
Yep.
I noted in one of the notes, I think it was from the ABCC, saying that even though they're following a streamlined process, we have to submit the whole packet.
Yes,
So, okay,
I
good.
just have to submit the whole
Yeah,
packet
perfect,
back to
okay.
them, yep.
Thank you, Cindy.
Yep.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the request of Texas Roadhouse for a change of officers/directors and reference our packet of 10-18.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. All right, our next appointment isn't until 7:30, and it is a public hearing with Eversource, so we're gonna need to stay on schedule and not begin that until 7:30. So let's move ahead to new business. First item is discussion and vote on a settlement agreement on 1350 North Street. So, Jim, if you could just give us a quick rundown on what this is about, and we'll vote.
You may recall that back in July, there was a problem with the 1350 North Street. There was some work done on town property. Wall was taken down, so a stop of work order was issued for the property. Since then, the developers come before your board, explained the situation, and we issued our fines, issued your direction to the developer. They've met all the requirements that are out there. The only thing that remains is the fines. They are not willing to pay the $30+ thousand that was assessed in fines. They are, however, willing to pay the about $8,000 in fines and waive any their rights to go back and possibly pursue legal actions against the town. Town council's vetted this. I've vetted it. I'm pretty comfortable. It meets everything I was hoping to get here. I think $8,000 is a significant amount of money. They're back on track. The foundation's poured up there, and they're proceeding with work. So
Okay, thanks, Jim. Yeah, and, you know, when they were in here and we had the hearing with them, when was that? 2 months ago?
Yeah.
And we cited them for lots of violations of the site plan, the approved site plan. We levied the fines to the fullest extent that we could because we wanted to send a strong message. We understood when we did that it was unlikely that we would collect $36,000 in this case. And so in my mind, the $8,000 is a very reasonable way to settle this thing, and hopefully we'll have no further issues with 1350 North Street. Other perspectives from the board?
I would jump in and say the same thing. I think that it's a reasonable settlement. I think that we made our point, and hopefully there's no further issues at that construction site. And, you know, it can keep moving forward, so.
Doesn't matter. I just had a question.
Thanks, Mark. David?
Question. How is the situation with the wall? Has that been resolved, or?
It's been resolved, it's been inspected by our building department, all the inspectors have inspected it, and they did hire a historical consultant. The historical consultants provided a report to the building department, copies on file with our office, and it met what it was supposed to meet.
Okay. Further discussion? Yeah.
I would just say that, you know, I don't believe that we should be in the business of going against town council and their legal recommendations. And if this is what they recommend is the correct way to go forward, it doesn't open the town to any further legal issues, then I'm in favor of it.
Thanks, man.
Before I make the motion, I just wanted to add the heartbreak is what we're not gonna get back, which is the wall that was removed. And so that being said, this is just the business side.
I agree, and there's unfortunately nothing we're gonna be able to do about that, so this is, I think, the outcome that we're after. David?
Yeah, well, I agree that we were never going to see $34,000. In fact, it's questionable whether, if we had properly, whether we had the authority to issue a fine. But certainly, and town council said as much, that we probably did not have the authority to issue a fine. But I think it's fair to receive, but it's not too late. We could file criminal citations for the violations that occurred previously. In lieu of that, I don't see any problem with accepting the $8,000 in lieu of seeking any fines through the courts.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we didn't actually levy the fines. What we did, and the motion was to ask our building commissioner to levy the fines, and he is the proper jurisdiction for that. So I think we'd handled that just fine. I have no concerns on that. So, motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the town administrator to sign the settlement with 1350 North Street.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, we still have a few minutes to go before we get to 7:30, so let's keep on moving. The next item is a vote request for Rick Mattson to declare Myers Waste Oil System surplus. Is Rick here? No, okay. Oh, yes, okay. Rick, you want to come up and just tell us quickly what you got going there? How you doing tonight?
Good.
Good.
How are you guys?
Great. Good.
This waste oil system is the system that was in place at the old DPW garage. It was determined that it could not be reused at the new garage because of its age, and we're simply looking to declare it surplus so we can accept bids to dispose of it.
I'll make a motion to approve the request of Richard Mattson and to declare the Myers Waste Oil System surplus.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Chairman, can I ask, since we got a couple minutes to
Sure.
take, item 1038 out of order there? That's the discussion, request to incorporate temporary sidewalk closure improvements. Just
That's a
wanted
good
to
idea.
put that there.
Okay.
Basically, that request is before you this evening. We're not looking for you to act upon it. We're actually not ready for you. We put it on there at the end of last week, hoping we'd have everything in place, but we're just not ready to move on it. There is a plan out there to move pedestrians from one side of the sidewalk to across the street there. Just everything just really isn't in place. I want to have some type of proposal that we can present to you saying, here's exactly what you have the diagram there, but what you don't have is, here's what the detail is going to be, if it's 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., because there's a line of sight issue right there, especially since they're going to be doing the work, and any potential road closures that need to be done there by doing the work out there.
Right. No, Jim covered it all. We met out there on site, I believe it was last Thursday,
Yeah.
with representatives of Corcoran and their contractor, and kind of laid out a plan of action. As Jim said, there were a couple of pieces that we're looking to get the finer details on, such as road closures and police details and basically pedestrian and traffic safety while the project is underway.
And we more or less want the board to be comfortable with this as the road commissioners and to have you weigh on it and basically sign off and give the blessing.
Okay.
If they're comfortable with it. But I want to make sure we're comfortable.
Yeah, it's, the plan that you have before you is very close. Again, just a couple of the finer details we just need to work out with Corcoran to ensure that, primarily pedestrian safety.
Yeah, okay. So when do you think you'll bring it back?
At the latest 11/5, the next meeting.
Perfect, okay. Great.
Can I just make a comment about, go ahead.
So just so I'm clear, it's the town is doing the closures, or this is their plan?
This is Corcoran doing the closures.
Right.
Right, under the guidance of the town.
What's that?
They're working in the town's roadways.
Right,
You guys
okay.
as the road.
Yeah, I would just expect that they would have, maybe not a stamped drawing, but something more formal. I mean, if we're gonna approve it and there's pedestrians using it and there's issues of liability and safety, I would definitely feel better if they had an actual engineer look at it and design it, make sure the widths were correct, the signage was correct.
That was one of the concerns that our engineering department had.
Okay.
And they have been working with the Corcoran people
Okay.
to ensure that we get the maximum lane
Yeah.
width that we possibly can during the construction.
I have another
David?
comment.
Yeah.
Just at the crosswalk at the Depot Road, I wonder if it should be designed more perpendicular to the roadway rather than the way it's crossing, or if there's a
Believe
problem
that-
between.
I believe that crosswalk is going to be relocated back towards the center of town, I believe. right?
That makes some sense, because it's the way the road curves and then the,
Right, it's very difficult. The crosswalk's right there as soon as you come around the bend.
okay. Thank
And
you.
the site distance issue is not gonna go away.
No.
As you know, the apartments are very close to the streets.
It's a problem.
If we can, yeah, maybe do some traffic calming along that road, put some pylons down the middle of the road just to keep people's,
Exactly. We
Slow
have
them down.
discussed internally, traffic calming, some sort of traffic calming mechanism to,
for a temporary measure.
whether it be humps or,
Great.
Good.
Rick, before you go, how about we move to the cemeteries, just while you're here? I'll make a motion to grant approval of the request to use cemetery care funds for the new equipment in the amount of $6,500.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? 500.
thank you, folks.
Rick, thanks very much for coming in, appreciate it.
I can add in one more.
Sure, let's keep on moving.
I'll make a motion to approve the annual request from the Friends of St. Patrick to hold the annual parade on March 13th, 2020, starting around 11:25 or 11:30 a.m.
I'll second that.
And I think in the documentation, it's more like 11 to 11:30.
I'll amend
Yeah.
my motion to 11.
A 5-minute parade is tough to pull
Quick.
off. Although it's not a very big parade.
I'll re-second that.
Okay, thank you, Mark. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained? I'll abstain. I'm a member of the Board of Directors of the Friends of St. Patrick's, so I'll abstain.
And I will make a motion to approve the request of Blessed Sacrament School for a one-day wine and malt license for November 9th, 2019, from 7 to 11 p.m.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? 500.
There you go.
Okay, so it's now after 7:30, so we can start our discussion with NSTAR, or Eversource, I think it is. Is it NSTAR or Eversource?
Yeah.
Eversource, yeah.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for Eversource.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second to open a public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 500. We're now in a public hearing. Do we have a representative from Eversource here? Hi, how are you? So maybe you could just step us through what the request is.
My name's Christine Cosby, Eversource Energy, and we are requesting permission to install approximately 290 feet of conduit within Elm Street, 80 feet southeast of East Street, and the purpose of this installation would be to provide the new electric service to the new apartment complex at 1034 East Street.
Any questions?
Is there something in here?
Is Carl Baldoff here?
Yep.
There's Carl. Hi, Carl. Carl, maybe you just give us your perspective on the project, and if there's anything we need to be thinking about?
Good evening to the chair, members of the board. I did supply a letter recommending this be approved, a memo last week, but in that I noted that they're going to be opening up a road that's on a moratorium, and I supplied some conditions of approval from the approval process for this that stipulate that the developer is obligated to do paving in these streets when all the entrances are done. And recently, I think today, we received a letter affirming the developer's commitment to do that. So I don't think the board should have any reservation in approving.
Okay, great, Carl, thank you. Any questions for Carl from the board? Since we're in a public hearing, I'll entertain any questions from the public on this project. Okay.
I have one question.
Sure, good.
We had some discussions about Greenwood Street and related to, was that a different utility? Is this, what utility is this? This is electric service, didn't we, what would,
Glenwood. Yeah, on Glenwood.
yeah, what was, how
Yeah.
did that end up
Yeah, that's a
resolving?
good question. So this goes back to the question of, we had Jerry in with a couple other folks, and they were talking about relocating a pole.
Yeah.
And then there was discussion about burying that, because the plan actually called for these utilities to go underground.
Planning board decision
Yeah.
is still in place. He hasn't asked to waive that or anything. Jerry stopped in today. He told me he's still working on that. He said it's really complicated to work with them.
Yeah.
He said they're really close. And before he came before the Board of Selectmen, he's gonna get with the Rockwoods who own that property across
Yeah.
the street there and see if they reconsider their position on some of those trees. But he didn't wanna overstep his bounds without talking to them, so it's still a work in progress.
So, the poles on Greenwood, do they service the condos or this property, do we know?
I believe they're gonna serve, as I recall, those wires service the Rockwood property. Because
Okay.
they crossed the street midway down, almost right at the end there. And they were gonna serve the condos because they were gonna be laying everything underneath the street, the
Okay.
sidewalk.
So that's still in process, this is a separate,
On the other side.
separate,
Yeah, this is on the Elm Street side.
Yeah, so he would have to come back, but if he's unable, which I don't think he is based on our conversation today, to do that, he'd have to come back before the planning board, get the decision.
Great, okay.
yeah, I was under the impression that they were providing their own energy, electricity up Greenwood, but apparently not, so. All right, that's fine.
Okay, any further discussion?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for Eversource.
I'll second that.
Glenwood.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. We're now out of the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to approve the request of Eversource to install approximately 290 plus minus conduit in the Elm Street to provide electric service to new apartment complex at 1034 East Street, subject to the conditions set forth in the memo from Carl Baldoff, the town engineer.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Thanks very much for coming in. Carl, thank you. Yeah. So, is Lynn Chiodo here? We have a request of Lynn, it's a reappointment, so I think we can just go with it.
Yes.
So we have a request from Lynn Chiodo to be reappointed to the Cultural Council.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Lynn Chiodo to the Cultural Council.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500.
I will make a motion to approve the request to hold a block party on October 19th from 12:30 to 5 p.m. on Bird Street.
I'll second that.
Discussion being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500.
I'll make a motion to award the bid contract 2020-12 for joint salt bid to Champion Salt LLC and Eastern Minerals, Inc. for various salt treatments.
I'll second that.
Jim?
This is the joint bid that we do every year with the town of Medfield and some other towns. We get a good value for doing this, and we're asking you to award it to two vendors in the case that the low bidder can't supply us.
Questions for Jim? Any further discussion?
I just hope we don't need a lot of salt this year.
We can give some of it back. Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Oh. A motion and a second. Thank you, Nancy. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500.
I'll make a motion to approve the one-day all-alcohol license for Knights of Columbus for 11/2/19.
I'll second that.
Discussion being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
I'll make a motion to approve the one-day, all-day alcohol license, all alcohol, not all day, license for the Knights of Columbus on 11/9/19.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Okay, now this next one I put on, got a phone call from Ted Hagler a couple weeks ago, and Ted was reminding me that our 300th anniversary, the town's 300th anniversary is just around the corner in 2024. And some of you might say, well, Jim, it's only 2019. What are you worried about 2024 for? Well, Ted sent me some documentation from our annual report about the 250th celebration, and it was quite extensive what happened in 1974. And I thought I'd share just a little bit of that. And again, this is courtesy of Ted Hagler. But some of the things that happened, it's quite a litany of things. So it was also happened to be the 100th anniversary of Blessed Sacrament Church and the 100th anniversary of the first graduating class of Walpole High School, all in the same year. So there was decorating of houses with flags and bunting. There was apparently a Massachusetts state lottery drawing that happened in the Blackburn Park area. Big parade on May 18th, 1974. Started at the high school, down Common to Maine to the Norfolk County Agricultural School. May 19th, road races, boys and girls. May 19th also services of the United Church to mark the beginning of the celebration of the town. May 24th, Athletic All-Star Night at Walpole High School Auditorium. June 4th, International Night, High School Cafeteria and Gymnasium. June 8th, Epiphany Church Village Fair, theme 250th anniversary, not surprising. July 3rd, of course, the annual night before the 4th. July 4th, local boys and girls bicycle races at 12 o'clock. Again on July the 4th, the Grand Prix Championship bicycle races sponsored by the Walpole Spokesman, which I assume is a bicycle group, at 1 p.m. Get it, Spokesman? September 4th, 5th, and 6th in the evening, a variety show under the direction of Connie Waldron, John Turco Field. September 7th, Championship Drum and Bugle Corps competition at John Turco Field. Also September 7th, Homecoming Day, ham and bean supper starting at 4 p.m., Blackburn Memorial Park area. September 15th, arts exhibition on Walpole Common, picnic in Bird Park, East Walpole, craft and cultural exhibition. And on September 20th, the capstone was the grand ball held at the King Philip Ballroom in Rentham. Some of you may recall we did that for the 275th 25 years ago, or approaching 25 years ago, and it was a great time. We also had it down at King Philip, if I'm not mistaken. But we didn't do a whole lot of other things because it was only the 275th. It wasn't, a milestone like the 300th. There were also appropriations that were given by town meeting over a course of a couple of fiscal years, which allowed a lot of these activities to get properly funded and paid for. And so you can go back to, or I'll actually leave this with Cindy, and anybody who wants to read it can read it, but it's quite a litany of things. And as I thought about what Ted said to me, I thought, wouldn't it be marvelous if we could do something to recognize the 300th anniversary of our town that had a whole sequence of events? And I'm not suggesting that they're those same sequence of events by any means. I only called that out to point out that there was a sequence of events. And I really wonder if, as a town, we'd be willing to kind of go and do that again. It might be a really cool thing to do. But that said, especially if there's funding required and over a couple of town meeting cycles, we would want to request funding, which is what the group in 74 did. What we would need to do is put together a committee to go and start to explore what the 300th might look like. So my thought, and again, at Ted's wonderful prodding, was that we should start having a dialogue around putting a committee together, perhaps an exploratory committee that might decide, what kinds of things we would want to do to recognize Walpole's 300th. But that it would be smart to get that started because there is quite a bit of planning to be done here in order to pull this off and make it the real success that 1974 was. So I'd be interested in any perspective from the board on that and see if there's any desire to go forward in that direction.
I think it's wonderful.
I do too. I really do. And I love the fact that Ted called with this.
Yeah,
Yeah. Anything else?
sounds good to me.
Anybody else?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I remember going to the 275th ball or whatever that
Yeah.
was. It wasn't quite a ball, but
Yeah.
I thought that was a lot of fun. I got a chance
was.
to meet people that I had never met before, and anything we can do to draw people together and
Yeah.
celebrate the history, I think would be a good thing.
I agree. So, Jim, I'm not quite sure, Cindy maybe, I'm not quite sure what the process might be to put together a committee or request people to join a committee to start to brainstorm this a little bit and maybe ask them, I guess we'd give them a charge and ask them to come back to us and say, here are the things that we, the committee, would recommend, and here's what it's going to take to make that happen. And if there was funding required, we'd then have a couple of town meeting cycles to go through that.
Yeah, my thought would be maybe each of us start with an outline of what we think this would entail. And then maybe the five of us can get together and talk about that outline and how we kind of make it one outline and then move ahead.
Okay?
What about engaging the cultural council as
Yeah.
perhaps,
Love it.
let them take it on and create a subcommittee where they can let some new people onto the subcommittee and make it part of what, they could plan events and maybe plan fundraisers leading up to that event. Might be helpful as well, rather than creating another new committee can make it a.
In order to pull these off, and I don't mean to continue to come back to this, but, well, actually I do, because I think it's very cool. So, cultural committee, had a cultural committee. Educational committee, fire safety night before the 4th committee, headquarters, history committee, homecoming committee, parade committee, publicity committee, religious committee, security committee, and souvenirs committee. So it takes a lot of people to pull this kind of thing off. And so, David, I like your idea of engaging with the cultural council. I wonder if we need some kind of a higher level board, if you will, or committee that sort of directs the overall and figures out how to engage the cultural council and this council and that council and and whatever else.
At least having them involved or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe we're early too for an
So-
actual, maybe the exploratory committee could be an ad hoc committee of those committees or something.
Yeah. So Nancy's put forth an interesting idea that the five of us put down on paper some of our thoughts as to what might go into this. I'm certainly happy to do that if everyone else is good with that.
Yeah.
You want to say come back in, maybe not next meeting, but the meeting after that, And, let's have some further discussion on it and see what direction we want to go in. Okay?
Sounds good to me.
Terrific. And my thanks to Ted Hagler for helping us to start thinking about this, because, again, if we're going to do something on any kind of scale, we do need to get started on it. So thanks, Ted. Really appreciate your help on this. Okay.
Could I add one thing?
Sure.
under new business?
Yes, you may.
Thanks, Jim. One thing that I did want to say is looking at some of these appointments to some of the other committees in town, whom we appoint people to, and this is nothing to single out the Cultural Council, but I think it's important that, and Cindy, I know that you reach out to these folks and let them know that they're coming up before us. But I think it's important that we as a board impress upon them the importance of coming in and speaking so that we can see them and get to know them. And I know as a new member of the board, there's a lot of folks who are involved in town that I don't know, and I'd like to get to know these people who are involved. And so I think it would really be great, again, if we could impress upon people the importance that they come in. I know everyone's busy, I can appreciate that. So just moving forward. Yeah. Yeah, certainly when it's a new appointment, but even some of these folks who have been on for a long time, have served, have put in a lot of their personal time for Walpole, which is a great thing. It'd be nice to see them again and get to talk to them, so.
So my thought to build off that is that maybe in the year of their reappointment, we could start letting them know that they can pick a meeting that year. They still have the intention to renew, but so that it's not all like one meeting, and it's,
Right, because, I mean, you could talk, we could be talking 30.
right,
people
30
at one
people,
time.
but, just that, if you could come in during the year of your renewal and just reintroduce yourself. And,
I'll reach out.
and
to
that
them.
way the time works for them too.
Yeah.
And in a way that works for you too, Cindy, I
Yeah.
mean, we're not looking at me,
Fine for me.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
So, where do you want to go with that formally?
No, it was just
Yes.
my comment to say, I'd like to see us start doing that and
Fair enough.
impressing, and
Okay.
if Cindy's on board, and we can just take that forward and
Okay.
maybe organically see, how it goes.
Okay,
Yep.
terrific.
Thanks.
All right, let's move ahead to the fall annual town meeting, Articles 12, 14, 15, 18, 19, 20. Hut, hut. And see if we can get through that before we get to open forum. So, Article 12. Jim, anything to say on Article 12?
The Board of Selectmen, the Sewer and Water Commissioners took action last week. They voted 3-1, no action on that particular article. They just couldn't come to an agreement on the price. They're just too far apart there.
Okay.
So that's ready. The Finance Committee is set to consider that on Thursday, but it's ready to vote if you'd like to.
Okay. Okay, any questions?
I'd just like to make a comment. So, based on a 1983 aquifer study, there were 4 properties listed in that study as properties that should be acquired by the town to protect the aquifer. The 4th item on that study was Jarvis Farm, and which I think we paid over 3 times the appraised value of the property. My understanding is that this property is listed first on that list of properties that should be acquired to protect the aquifer. And my understanding is that instead of being 3 times the appraised value of the property, it is 1/3 of the value of the appraisal. Do we have an appraisal on this
We
property?
haven't released it because more or less if we're gonna negotiate.
That's fine.
But I can tell you that it did come in appraised as is, it was just around $30,000 to $40,000 landlocked. If it is developable, it was about $400,000.
And there, my understanding, there is an easement on one of the properties off
There's
Darwin Way.
utilities.
So, well, I guess we'd have to figure out whether or not it is landlocked or not, but it's certainly something that, if we were looking at the first item on the list, if we already went forward and bought the fourth item on the list, we certainly should look at the first. And the document itself says in order of importance. It listed this as first in the order of importance. It is upstream, uphill from one of our most important pumping stations. And, it doesn't look like it's going to go forward right now, but I would just suggest that pencils get sharpened and that this deal gets done to protect the aquifer.
Thanks, David. Any other comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Motion for no action, I believe.
Do a motion for no action? I will make a motion for no action, no favorable action on Article 12.
I'll second that.
Further discussion, being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstained, 4-1-0. All right, next we have Article 14, and I think we have Article 14 and 15 because they're really related. Jim, these are the inclusionary zoning bylaws.
Yeah, and I
Leave,
think that
Yeah.
Ben might want to weigh in on
Ben?
this.
Yeah, so, the board, well, I guess to take it back, at the FinCom, they voted to refer back 14-1 on both of these. And at that meeting, Andrew Flowers, who's a member of the Walpole Housing Partnership, had read a short statement about, the work that we had done, how the Walpole Partnership felt about these particular articles, and why the Housing Partnership was requesting refer back to committee. That statement was distributed to all of us, so I'm hoping that everyone had the chance to read it. I won't read it in its entirety here, but I would, pending further discussion, make a motion to refer back to committee on 14 and 15.
14?
Let's do them separately.
Separately?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do them separately.
On 14.
Okay,
Second.
motion and a second, further discussion? David?
Yeah, as, when this came up in August, I had misgivings about putting it on the agenda for the town meeting because the document that we were presented with had blank spaces where important provisions were to be. We were told that we were going to have the completed document within 2 weeks. We actually only got the completed document less than 2 weeks ago. I'm very concerned about doing zoning this way in a haphazard manner and last minute and not getting this stuff, giving the public a full opportunity to vet and see the final document. So I'm glad that the partnership essentially said we're not ready, but I think perhaps, and I also think that we need to relook at more issues in addition to the inclusionary zoning. There were several provisions of the zoning book that have been taken out, which are help the issue of affordable housing. One is the open area zoning provisions that were removed, the accessory use, which allows in-law apartments, was removed. I think, again, even with the benefits and discussion about this particular, and the downside of this particular section, I think we do better if we were to look at not these individual provisions, but have a comprehensive look at the zoning book so that we can do these things in conjunction with other portions of the zoning ordinances, zoning bylaws, and get it right and have a program and go out and have buy-ins from the various neighborhoods and constituencies within the town. At this point now, I believe the document is fairly vetted. It's been looked at by town council, and some numbers have been discussed. And I hope that the time we now have between now and the next town meeting will be used wisely to perhaps add other issues, including other issues that need to be addressed, and to give this a full and comprehensive vetting with the community.
Thanks, David. Other discussion?
I think this is definitely needed. I think it's almost there. I think to pull it back is the safest thing so that we get it right before we go to town meeting. But building on what David said, this is still also just a Band-Aid. Our zoning book needs to be addressed, the whole zoning bylaw. We've been saying it for like 5 years now. You know, we keep doing things piecemeal, and then after the fact, there finds that there's a hole from something else, that it needs to be taken as a whole document.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. Any other comments?
Yeah, I would just say I look forward to this hopefully coming back in the spring. I agree with the comments that it was, you know, maybe 97%, 95% ready, and zoning gets very frustrating on the floor of town meeting if we're still negotiating over what something means. So I think this was the smart thing to do, and I do look forward to it coming back and everyone having a good amount of time to read through it. So I think it was a smart move.
Yeah, and I agree, too. I think it's the right way to go, and I do want to see it again in the spring. It's sorely needed.
Could I
Sure.
say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
So just to be clear and to disabuse folks of the notion that anything was rushed or hurried with any part of Article 14's bylaw, this is something that was worked on for over 6 months in the Walpole Housing Partnership, engaging the ZBA, engaging the planning board. We had 2 public hearings on it. We engaged town council. We engaged the Massachusetts Housing Partnership, which is a state-run organization that assists towns like us and organizations like the WHP in assembling these sorts of bylaws. We got buy-in from them on the full bylaw text. And also from others at the state and legal level who have oversight over these sorts of things. We had buy-in from them. So the bylaw as it stands certainly could be brought to town meeting, but I guess what I would request from everybody in the public, residents, this board, other boards, is that we have this bylaw, we have the text, all of these people have put input onto it that's been included. So if you have any questions about it, or you'd like to read it, or you would like to meet with the housing partnership about it, please do so, because we have many months until Springtown meeting when it will certainly be back. And so please reach out and please get to know this document because it's ready now. And I'd hate to come back in a couple of months and have people say the same thing, that they still have questions, or they still don't feel ready, or they still want other people to talk about it, because it's available now. So let's get it done.
Thanks, Ben. Okay, any other conversation, dialogue? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
We did.
You already did. It's the second time I've done that. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed? Abstained? 5-0-0. Article 15.
So I'd make a motion for refer back to committee for Article 15.
Second.
Further discussion? Being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 5-0-0. Okay, Article 18. Jim, anything on this?
Sure, just if 18, 19, 20 are all citizens petition. 19 and 20, Finance Committee has voted 11 for favorable action on each item. 18 are recommending at town meeting. At this time, the board may want to consider holding off on those 3 articles, those last 3, just to allow the Finance Committee to have their public hearing. Town Council, since Finance Committee did vote favorable action on 19 and 20, has suggested some language change that I shared with the chair, vice chair, and clerk of the Finance Committee, along with the moderator. I think they're going to discuss that along with the citizen petitioner, whether or not council suggested if you're going to make the change, why don't you just make it the right way? She had some suggestions on the wording. So you are posted right before town meeting, I believe about 6:30 that night. So I think you should hold off on taking those votes just to see where it comes back at, so you're not voting to reconsider any of these.
I'll make a motion to table 18, 19, and 20 till our
6:30 at the high school.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Yeah. Could we still hear from the petitioner on this, or
Sure.
if she wants?
Sarah?
Thanks. I just want to say a couple words about the citizens petition that I submitted. So my name is Sarah Khatib, RTM Precinct 8. So we submitted a citizen petition to change the name of the Board of Selectmen and the title chairman to gender-inclusive titles of the Select Board and Chair. So we know that the name changes, or the name has not previously prevented non-males from serving, but this change is proposed to really better reflect our reality. And I just wanted to acknowledge the work of what I'll call citizen journalist and a former prominent figure in Walpole, Mr. Sam Obar. Sam maintained a blog on kind of local politics, and at one point he wrote a post on Walpole's Board of Selectmen. So the data that I'm about to reference is credited to him. So Walpole, like all other Massachusetts towns, created a board of executives to conduct business between town meetings, the Board of Selectmen. So when Walpole was founded in 1724, the town selected 3 men to form the Board of Selectmen. So in Walpole, from its founding, 1724 to 1953, that's a span of 229 years, no women served on the Board of Selectmen. In the decades of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, for each of those decades, 1 woman served on the board. In the decades of the 80s and the 90s, 2 women served on the board. In the decade of 2000, and this was the first time in the history that 2 women served on the Board of Selectmen at the same time. In that decade, Walpole saw its most women ever serve on the board, and that was 3 women. Our current decade, the decade of 2010, 2 women have served. So words do matter. It's just not acceptable to have a male gendered name for our highest office in an elected board. So we're proposing this simple change to our bylaws and to our town charter to both encourage future leaders to serve and to better reflect our current composition. So many studies, such as the ones conducted by Cloverpop, Credit Suisse, McKinsey, the University of Melbourne, have shown the value of gender diversity and the effects of gendered language. Many cities and towns across Massachusetts are updating their board titles to be more gender inclusive. All 54 Massachusetts cities have changed or approved the change. And to date, according to my research, 99 Massachusetts towns have changed the name of the Board of Selectmen to a more inclusive name. The town administrator estimates that the change can be implemented with a cost of less than $10,000. And I believe this money is well spent for the benefit of our future. So I ask that you vote in favor of this small but significant change. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Sarah?
Nope.
I do, yeah. Are these the changes that have been discussed here that Jim was referencing? Can you speak to those, or?
Well, I got those
Oh, okay.
today at
That's fine, I
like
just-
5:30, but
Okay, okay.
in general, I mean, there's nothing that major. I
Okay.
think the changes she suggested for Article 19, which is the town charter, is fine. I have no problem with that. Basically, she amended it so that the general court is able to make certain minor changes as long as that's within the scope of, our intent to change the name, which I have no problem with. For Article 20, which is the change to the general bylaws, she inserted the zoning bylaws, and I don't think that's necessary. That's not really what I'm seeking to do. I mean, that change would be needed eventually, but I think it's fine to keep what we have, and that's just amending the town bylaws. to change the name of the Board of Selectmen and Chairman.
So does that, if I?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So does that require then a substitute motion, or how do we?
Well, as I understand it, maybe Jim can weigh in, it sounds like FinCom can
Make it the main motion?
change.
Yes, and that's what, there was a bit of confusion on my part when I talked to town council on Friday, because I was always under the assumption that if Sarah submitted a petition one way as a petitioner,
Yeah.
it couldn't be changed.
Yeah.
It can be changed as part of the main motion. What's
Yeah.
advertised in the newspaper cannot be changed or part of the warrant. So council suggested, why don't you make this, one of her questions was, do you want to address the zoning bylaws too? Because that obviously changes the vote too, under that article, that last article, to a 2/3 vote. So that's something that I wanted to more or less ask Sarah to weigh in on as the lead petitioner.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, from the beginning, I thought if there was any changes, it would be better to have FinCom make those changes. So
Sure.
I have no problem with that.
Okay.
But
All
more
right.
comment. I have communicated this with the chairman, it's fine, thanks.
Okay.
The question is, if you do add zoning to this, is the current notice sufficient to have allowed those changes to the zoning ordinance?
Council's the one who suggested zoning, so I think she was satisfied, but it doesn't sound like Sarah may be looking to add zoning to it. So.
I mean, it'd be just, we can address that, hopefully, if we do this comprehensive plan, we can address it then, and
Or
leave
next
zoning
town
out of it,
meeting or
and let it
something.
just be, majority versus 2/3. And the only other, I just want to say that when Mr. Kraus was the chairman, he did ask the members of the board, and we gave deference to the female members of the board whether we wanted to change it, and at that time, we're not unaware of the issue, and at that time, there wasn't a big discussion to go forward with that, but I'm really, I let the town meeting decide it, and it's fine.
Okay, any other discussion?
Yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
So I was elected a selectman. I'll continue to identify as a selectman, and I will be a selectman. I think it's crazy. I feel that this town elected me 18 years ago, and it didn't matter if I was male or female, and I ran for offices. I also felt it a problem when you're advertising the change in social media and you used my picture, being the only female. I kind of thought it just wasn't right. It gives the impression that I might be backing or might be a part of this, and I'm not. I have spent a lot of years giving service to this town, and for this to be changed while I'm here, it gives the reference that it has something to do with me. And I think I have been a very good leader being myself for young females in the future. And I hope to God that my legacy isn't about being the one who changed the Board of Selectmen to select people.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
I mean, definitely, I don't know if you remember, but we had a conversation about this, you and I, at the MMA meeting. And I was aware that you were not in favor of it. But it is really in deference to you, and out of respect to you, that the way we wrote it is that each person serving on the board can continue to refer to themselves.
I'm referring to the respect part about the picture.
Yeah, so on that.
That was the lack of.
Yeah, so I wrote an article for the Future of Walpole group. I did not select the picture, but if you look at the article, the picture is of the 5 members of the Board of Selectmen. So I apologize if
It's just the impression that it gives.
I apologize. It wasn't me who selected the picture, but it was all 5 more members that was in the picture.
Okay, Ben?
Yeah, and with respect to what Nancy said, and I support her and her beliefs, but to me, and with the folks the residents I've talked to in town, that really is the point, that the title is very meaningful to people on a personal and individual level, and everyone has a different viewpoint on it and what they would like to be called or what they think is the right thing to be called. And so to be able to identify, inclusivity as an important social norm here in Walpole is critical, I think, to the message that we're trying to send to our kids, to the message we're trying to send to other towns. And I certainly respect everybody's opinion on what they see as the right title to be called. In that same vein, I think that it's not very often that the town has the opportunity to place a marker, so to speak, and say, hey, this is what we're about. And certainly the RTMs have that with this article, to be able to say, we are an inclusive community. We're a community where we encourage people to embrace what they believe in and to take on the titles and identities that they feel is proper for themselves. And I think that's really important. So I'm definitely in support of this article.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I would just say, I think this is a good article for the town meeting to take up, and I am in favor of it, so.
Anybody else? And I would just say that I'm going to support this as well. And I actually find everything that Nancy says to be very truthful, and I very much appreciate her opinion. I hold Nancy in very high regard. And so I fully understand her perspective on this. And when I think about it, Selectmen has been a perfectly good name for many, many years. And however many permutations there have been of that, been a perfectly good name. But you also have to say, but it would be even better if it was Select Board, Chair, whatever, and approach it that way. So that's not to say that there's anything wrong with the word Selectmen. That would be, I think, really a bad message. But it's even better if. It's a better solution. It's a better answer to say Select Board, Chair, and so forth, for the reasons that some of my colleagues have cited. But I do want to be clear that there is absolutely nothing wrong with the word Selectmen. Okay? But I'm going to support this, Sarah, and I appreciate you bringing it forward. Jim, I think you've suggested that we defer these three until we get to town meeting. So at least I think you have a good sense of where the board stands at this point on these, but it probably does make sense to wait till the final wording is all hammered through so we don't end up having to do a reconsideration vote and all that.
Okay.
And so that's what I propose that we do is at 6:30 on the night of town meeting, we'll vote these, okay?
I think I made a motion to table them anyway, didn't I?
Oh, you did? Okay. Is that 3 times?
That's 3 times, Jim.
3 times.
Recommendation of town meeting for all three.
Well, I made the motion
Oh, no,
To-
you did.
To hear them the night before.
to table them for a town meeting.
Right, that was voted 5-0-0.
And then we got into the conversation,
Yeah.
so that's what we'll do.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, terrific. Sarah, again, thank you for being here, okay? All right, and that takes care of all of our,
Could I ask one more question?
you may.
I'm sorry. I've interrupted a lot tonight, I apologize.
Yeah, 'cause we're using you.
I'm sorry.
Just trying to keep us going.
Oh, the brake's on. Jim, I did have one question, just about 18.
Yes.
So that is something that Sewer and Water has voted on as well?
They have weighed in on, and their request, their recommendation was to refer back to petitioner. I believe that Mr. Boraski is working with some of them to bring this back at a later date, and I think that's what Finance Committee may also do.
Okay.
They wanted to hear about any comments or feedbacks at the public hearing.
Okay, because I would say that's the one that I know the least about out of any of these, as far from a detailed standpoint, what it means, what the impacts are. So, and we're not gonna get to talk about it tonight, so.
I'll provide you guys with the same update I provided to
Yeah, okay.
council's weighed on this twice.
Okay, all right,
Yeah,
thank you.
and what is the town council said that this is not something that town meeting can do.
Not at this time. The special requirement to have a special act or legislation put in there to make it binding would be required. And the Municipal Modernization Act allows specifically for the Board of Selectmen and for the Sewer and Water Commissioners to do these type of intermunicipal agreements, similar to what we recently did with Sheridan, before that Foxborough and some of the houses we provide water to up in Norfolk on Deerfield Drive up there. More to come, I'll provide you.
Good, thank you. All right, it's 8:15, 15 minutes after our open forum schedule time. We've got a room full of people here who've been waiting very patiently to participate in open forum. So I wonder if I could just get a sense for how many people actually want to speak at open forum. If you could just raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. As a catch-up for those who may not have been here at the very beginning, the board did take 2 votes related to the Summer Street 40B project. As you probably know, Omni Partners asked us to waive our safe harbor rights and allow them to go from 300 units, which is the current proposal, to 420 units because they've acquired or will acquire an adjacent property. The board voted not to do that, and in fact voted to send a letter to Omni Partners saying that we will not support waiving of that provision. Now, interestingly enough, the Board of Selectmen doesn't actually control that. It's actually the Zoning Board of Appeals that controls that. So what we're also going to do is, so we've represented the town as the executive board of the town to Omni Partners and said, we're not interested. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2 is we'll send a letter to the zoning board also expressing that, so that the zoning board has that as input into their process as well. Now, they're an independent board, so they'll do what they do. But I think having had us take that vote and provide that input is meaningful. So I share that because in case anybody is gonna come to the podium and talk about not doing the 300 to the 420, we've already dealt with that. So if that's part of your purpose in being here, let's not go and rehash that. I think we've dealt with that already. Second thing is, and there's only, I think, 4 hands that went up, so it's not a big deal, but let's try to limit the discussion to a couple minutes per, just hit your points and move on so that we can keep going on the agenda. Is that fair? Okay, so who wants to go first? Sure, step up. If you could just give your name and address so that Cindy can capture it for the minutes, that would be awesome.
Good evening, everybody. I live at 62 Pine Street. I'm just down the street from Nancy. I'm very glad to be one of your neighbors. I've been in Walpole for about 8 years, and I really love the quality of this town, and I hate to see it become overdeveloped as it was in Boston. I came down here to be in this type of town, and it seems to me, after I was really glad to be here to hear what you have to say, in addition to seeing you on video. It seems that you have an awful lot to say about the quality of life in this town. And so I would think maybe one of the arguments that you could make to the zoning board, it would be to say, you know, overdevelopment is affecting our quality of life. You affect sidewalks, you know, daily liquor licenses and so on. Why not have the power to say how many people can develop this town beyond to what we can stand? So anyway, I hope you can work with the lawyers and do something to that effect, because I can't see this happening in Weston, Wayland, Wellesley, or Concord. They wouldn't take it sitting down. And I don't think you will either, and I know we will not.
No, that's apparent.
Okay?
So, well, thank you. And I meant to say also, as part of my lead into this is, in open forum, because we don't know what's gonna come up in the discussion, and in order to make sure that we don't get out of step with the open meeting law, we won't be providing responses to what we hear. This is a great opportunity for input to us. If there are some things that we need to take away, we'll do that, and Jim can, take those and deal with them. Or we could schedule another time with a specific appointment if that were the case. But just so you'll know, the reason that we're not gonna respond or react to what you're saying is just because of that, okay?
And is the zoning board a neutral body? Indeed.
Well, the zoning board, acts under a set of rules, and yet, what you need to understand about the 40B process is that in many ways, the 40B process circumvents local zoning, which is really some of the big problem we have with this. By the way, Jim did a really good job with input from a lot of people in this room, I might say, putting together a whole raft of answers to frequently asked questions, basically. And I don't know if you've seen that, but it's a worthwhile read, because it gives you a lot of information and perspective on what's really happening here. where we can make a difference, where we're not able to. It's a really helpful read, so I don't know if you've seen that, but we should get that to you.
And we should see what Wellesley and Weston do, too.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
input. Appreciate you being here tonight. Who wants to go next?
And by the way, that frequently asked questions is online.
On the
Okay.
town website.
Right, thanks.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Peter Drogan. I'm an RT in Precinct 5. And I just want to commend the board for their action tonight on that decision and their recommendations to pass it on to the zoning board as well. We're going through a lot in South Walpole right now. We've got trains running all over the place starting next week. And this is just adding to all that. And certainly expanding beyond the original proposal is something that would cause even more disruption for that area. So thank you very much.
Well said, thank you. Appreciate your input. Who wants to go next? Yes, way in the back.
Standing up for yourself, Selectmen. I am concerned about our water supply that is on the aquifer. I'm sorry, my name's Kathleen Cleary. I live at 3 Shoefelt Road. I apologize for that. I have the 2018 water, and at the very bottom it says the Mass Department of Environmental Protection has completed a water. And it says the report contains information relative to land use and water supply for both the mine and Meadowbrook aquifer, which are highly susceptible to potential contaminants. Now you're going to be building on top of the aquifer, and the runoff contaminants are just out there exponentially. For wetland, how are you going to protect? How is the town going to protect our water when you're building on the aquifer? You talked about buying property to protect the aquifer. How is that going to protect us in South Walpole and the town as a whole when its water supply gets contaminated? I noticed on the fall bill something about the MWRA. Is that what the town is looking at? That with so much development going on, the aquifer is going to get depleted, and that we are going to go MWRA.
Thank you very much for your input. Who else would like to go? Yes. Hello.
Dan O'Shea, 6 Shoefelt Road. Thank you all for your service, and I think what Nancy had to say was right on in the beginning, but also David is right too. There's only certain things you can do to beat 40B, and this is a location that isn't safe because they have one way in, one way out, right next to the railroad tracks. Kids going over the railroad tracks to go to school, maybe, whatever. So we got to look at safety. We got to look at how many 40Bs Walpole has done in the last 12 months. That's what they look at. What our plans are for more 40Bs and where that would be more appropriate. That's what zoning will look at, I think, and from what I'm reading. And then in regards to the aquifer, when you read, this is the report that you were talking about a few minutes ago from Jim Johnson answering questions. The fire department had said, well, when you put in this gravel driveway, is that the only way they're getting past the aquifer rules? Because when I moved into Walpole in 87 on Shoefelt, half the houses couldn't put in paved driveways because you had to have, depending on what your footprint is, you had to be able to drain. So that must mean they need to drain to put in a gravel driveway, and that gravel driveway is not going to stay there. I mean, it's part of building a complex like that to be able to plow it and everything else. They're going to pave wide over it as soon as they build it. And who's going to stop them then? So anyway, those points I think should be brought up. You know a lot better, and I appreciate, again, you getting involved. I did go to the zoning board meeting. I said a few things there, but, I'm just a Walpole guy. We need all of you to work on this, but that is not an appropriate spot. As anyone who's parked in my driveway knows, you ain't getting out of there, and you know, and during any, especially the concerts or anything where you don't have the, and people are going to die in that complex trying to get out of it. Not to mention those of us that are already there. You can only go right, and the hospital is left. And I mean, there's better places to put things. We do need 40B in the town. We have to plan for it. We have to zone for it. I couldn't agree more with looking into that more. We need to do it proactively, or it's going to end up in somebody else's. It's going to end up on a farm somewhere that you know, that we can't stop, and you know, that's the way you gotta fight this, and we do. It is an inappropriate spot, so we should be able to have our say.
Thank you very much.
again.
Appreciate your input. Anyone else? Yeah, two more people. Go ahead, you go first.
Hi, I'm Jen Karnakis. I live at 16 Rainbow Pond Drive. I'm actually the chair of the Walpole Historical Commission, so as you go and do your homework about Walpole 2024, I just want to encourage you to consider using the Historical Commission as well. I feel like Mo's
Will
up
do.
here.
I think so.
It's actually been on our agenda for months, and I had reached out to Patrick Shield earlier this year to offer anybody in our committee to serve on committees to help in planning and any of the historical aspects.
Great, thank you, appreciate it. Yes?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for voting the way that you did this evening. I appreciate it. So my name is Krissa Casellas, and I live in South Walpole. I lived on Washington Street and just recently moved to a new cul-de-sac that was built on La Civita Drive off of Winter Street. I have 3 children in the Walpole Public Schools. My oldest is a freshman. My middle one is in middle school. My youngest is in 1st grade. He will never, ever be able to walk to Boyden, which is really sad to me because my other children were able to do that, both living on off of Winter and on Washington. So he will never have that opportunity. His mommy will never let him do that now. With the train, obviously, and the safety issues. So my biggest concern is the safety in that area of Walpole. I go through there multiple times a day, to and from each one of the schools, driving back and forth, field hockey practice, cheerleading, everything that you can imagine. I'm driving through there all the time. On a daily basis, there are many times where I've almost been hit as well. And I mean driving in that area. So I think we can all attest to that too. So the safety is definitely a huge, huge concern. The impact of the trains is one thing. The impact of this housing project is another concern for us. I can't imagine one more thing for South Walpole to go through. We dealt with Gillette Stadium. We dealt with the building of Patriot Place. We managed it. We did well. The train coming is very concerning. Safety is, first and foremost, but putting a housing project next to all of that too. Okay, so I'm done with the safety piece, right? Now environmental. Environmental is a huge impact. Unfortunately, right next to that property, we know there's a contaminated site. It is a non-buildable, Superfund contaminated site. If we start digging up the soil in that area, which we will be, the only thing that separates that side to the other side is a set of train tracks. That's it. When we start digging that up, let's see what will happen. I thank you for voting the way that you did. I do appreciate it greatly, but I'm really hoping that there is another place or opportunity to put a 40B housing unit. I'm not opposed to it at all. We just need to maybe take a deeper look into it. And even, I think there's a athletic fields off of 1A, across from the old prison. Might be a possibility. No?
No.
Just thinking in that direction. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your input tonight. Appreciate you being here. Okay, I note that Representative Sean Dooley has joined us here, and I understand you'd like to say a few words. So, Sean, please come on up to the mic and welcome. Thanks for coming here tonight.
Thanks for having me. I actually had it on the agenda that the delegation was coming at 7:45 tonight, and so unfortunately, the rest of the delegation evidently had a Democratic caucus, and they all voted not to come, and forgot to tell the one Republican that it's been called off for tonight. So I just wanted to call.
Look at it this way, it's their loss.
Exactly. And I apologize for my dress. I also coach football, so
okay.
I was coming straight from the field. So I just wanted to say hi. Thank you guys for all you do. Anything I can ever do to help, the entire delegation. That's what we're there for. You guys are great partners. Working with Jim and the entire board, it makes it much more enjoyable being able to work with everybody in the community, and it's a real symbiotic relationship. And so it's very, very helpful knowing that we're all a unified front when whether it's asking for money or dealing with the prisons or whether it's a 40B or whatever it is. That's one of Walpole's strengths, and so I just wanted to just say that publicly. And I guess I'll look forward to the rescheduling of our I presume it'll probably be after town meeting, but whenever you're.
We're thinking it's going to be the 5th. I don't know, is that locked in yet?
November 5th.
It is, okay, yeah. So November 5th, we expect to be back. So sorry you didn't get the word this time, but it was nice to have you here.
I was going to say, well, fortunately, I also picked my son up at 8:45 at Rodman Rink, so.
Okay.
So this works out perfectly. I just texted Jim, I'm like, all right, I got to leave about 8:35, so besides that, I'm good. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
See you in a couple weeks.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for your efforts in South Walpole as well.
So before we wrap this session here, Jim, I wonder if I could just ask you to sort of say for the group what the process looks like in terms of where we go between now and I think it's November 1st when we send the letter to Mass Housing, unless they've given us an extension that I'm not aware of. So if you could just sort of film it. What I'd like to do is I just want to level set for the group kind of what the process looks like and what our involvement in that is. So Jim.
Sure. So Mass Housing has asked for our feedback by November 1st. I've asked for an extension until at least November 6th to allow the board to actually vote and sign the letter, whatever it may be, to Mass Housing. I haven't been granted that extension yet. I'm pushing for it hard. If we don't get it, I'll just put it under my name and make sure I have your input on it. I have let some of the South Walpole folks know, Julie Lowry and Joanne Mulligan. I've been communicating directly with them. I've asked them to get any comments you folks, your neighbors have into me by the 18th so I can make sure I get it incorporated into our letter. I've set the deadline of the 18th because quite honestly, the town's hired a housing consultant to help me kind of navigate through this process. I've asked her to kind of weigh in on that, along with our community planning director, Ashley Clark, who just started a few weeks ago. Once we kind of vet it, I'm gonna have town council vet it. So I wanna give us about 2 weeks to have it fully vetted, make sure we cover all the bases. I share a lot of these concerns. My kids went to South Walpole preschool down there the last 5 or 6 years, and I understand what the traffic is down there. I'm concerned with the traffic. I know the public safety officials are. Rick Mattson, the DPW, are worried about the infrastructure as far as the roadways, the sidewalks. I know what it's like getting down to a game down there. It's a mess. I couldn't get in there 2 weeks ago on that nice Sunday afternoon. I had to go all the way around Winter Street just to get down there and check it out. And, with the train starting on the 21st, it's gonna create even more challenges. We've been fighting them for the last 3 years, all alone. We're the only town in the state that opposed that service. But we'll continue to fight and take it as far as we can. So, people, please get your comments into me. My email address is jjohnson@walpole-ma.gov, jjohnson@walpole-ma.gov. Or if you wanna just drop something off in our office, if I'm not around, Cindy will be around to take it. I'll make sure we incorporate it into the letter. And that'll be a public document. And we're growing our 40B website. We've added more stuff onto it today. On November 12th, we're gonna have an open 40B get to know the ropes Q&A session at the Council on Aging. We'll open that up to all boards and committees, and if you folks wanna go, it's just more or less gonna be a couple hours worth of, here's the basics of 40B. So, that's kind of it for me, but, feel free to come in and talk to me about it if you'd like.
I have a question at the back. Yeah, go ahead.
All the dates that you mentioned, are they going to be on the Walpole website for those that don't have
Yeah, sure. We can add that on the website. I'm looking at Ashley, she's shaking her head, so great. Okay.
So we'll add a calendar
Yeah.
of these events and dates to the website, the town website, for when these deadlines are.
Okay, good. Well, thank you.
Make a
Go
quick
ahead.
comment?
Yeah, sure.
Just,
Dan.
some of you are gonna think of something you wanted to say as you walk out tonight. You can go right to the website and hit the Selectmen page, and that you can send us emails. Send it to, any of us will send it around to the others, or you can send it to Ms. Berube or the town administrator. And I appreciate, we've gotten a bunch of those emails in the last week, and they've all been circulated, and we have read them, so I just appreciate any input that you might have, especially about what things we can do to alleviate some of the bad effects should this thing go through, whether it's traffic or parking or sidewalks, whatever your issues are. I'd appreciate hearing. Thanks for letting me say
Thanks,
that.
David. Okay, thank you all very much for being here tonight. It's great to see this level of involvement, and appreciate all your comments and your patience. So, good night. Thank you.
We still have more.
Yes. All right, let's move on. We have the consent agenda next.
These items will be voted as one item. They are donations to the ambulance gift account from numerous donors, $200 from SM LaRusso and Sons to the community events. I'll just wait a second.
Yeah, just wait a second.
I was trying to talk over them.
That's all right.
So from SM LaRusso and Sons to the Recreation Community Events account, $750. From Dominic and Randy Silvestro to the Council on Aging. And from Karen Carpenter and Vivian Wu to the Council, I don't know who that's to.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from October 1st, 2019.
I'll second that.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, 500. Hang on one second for Jim's town administrator report. That's all right, Jim. Duty calls, so,
Town administrator.
town administrator update, please.
I had Ashley Clark in the room with everyone crowded. I'll make sure she gets before you guys at one of your November meetings, just to introduce her. She did briefly attend the Housing Partnership meeting. This is her third week here in Walpole, and she's hit the ground running. She's been doing a great job.
Fabulous.
Working with me on this 40B stuff and keeping up with the website. We've been adding stuff the last couple of days, so I would like to introduce her to the rest of the board formally, probably your next meeting or the one later on in November. For the town administrator's update, just a reminder, town meeting's set to start next week. The moderator is going to start festivities at 7 p.m., which means Pledge of Allegiance. If Congressman Lynch is going to come in, any of the delegation or the sheriff want to address the audience, he wants to get all that done with by 7:30. So if you're planning on attending, please show up early. 40B training, I mentioned that
Well,
briefly.
we'll have a 6:30
Yeah.
posted meeting. We know we're gonna have
More or
to.
less for the audience,
Yeah, okay.
We'll be on for 6:30. I don't know which room, but it's gonna be in that main hallway.
Okay,
I think we're gonna probably be back in that way.
yeah, okay. Good. All right, thanks.
The 40B training I briefly mentioned, this is all kind of coming together between Friday and now. Again, Ashley's done a great job reaching out to one of the experts in the state. I think it might be good for this board. We're going to invite the zoning board, some of the town officials, but it's mostly a public info session, Q&A type of thing. MSBA, we received confirmation that we're currently on their agenda for October 30th. That is about a month and a half ahead of schedule, which is good. We have all our ducks in a row for that one. Once I get an agenda time confirmed, I will let all of you know. That was at their, right in Boston. It wasn't near the State House, though. It's in the financial district.
Okay.
I have a question about
Yeah.
that. That committee hasn't met.
No, the committee hasn't. This
It's
is
waiting
the
till after the-
MSBA Board of Directors.
But our town committee meets after, we have to wait for
Once we
the,
officially.
Gotcha,
Get
okay.
accepted into the program. Briefly mention the legislative delegation with the selectmen. If you could, a couple of the reps have asked for any comments or questions or anything specifically so they can be prepared for the discussion. So if you have something specific you'd like to bring up, I've told them probably be prepared to expect to talk about the change in the Chapter 70 formula, 40B, anything they can give us on the train, and as far as updates, but by the time they get in here, it'll probably already be running. So if you have anything that comes to your mind, please let me know. MBTA, train service is set to start on the 21st. The police department will have extra police personnel out there those first few days, and he's gonna get the signboards up. I actually was talking them through before, and they're moving those around to put them in place, just to make sure the word's out as much as we can do to let the residents know. And while I was sitting here, I thought about Engine 4. Engine 4 was delivered, that's the new engine for the fire department. I noticed this weekend when I stopped by there, the old Engine 4 was still there, and I talked to the chief. I said, usually we trade that in. The best they were gonna give us was $5,000 in the trade-in. He has a couple of towns, one in Rhode Island and one in New Hampshire, that might be interested in for a lot more money. So I think we're gonna try the public auction surplus
Good.
site that we've done. So probably at your next meeting, I'll ask the board to declare it as surplus. We were able to get, I think, about $6,000 for one of the dump trucks that we sent off. That we were gonna get $2,500 in scrap for it, so we got a little bit more. We'll
Good
try
job,
that.
chief, looking for some cash.
Yeah. And that's about it for me. Any comments, questions?
Okay.
We have executive session?
So that concludes our formal agenda in open session, at least for a few minutes. We're going to go into executive session for a discussion on contract negotiation with non-union personnel. Specifically, it's the town administrator contract that we're negotiating. And so we are going to come back, and any votes that we take coming out of that executive session, we're going to take in an open session. So, Patrick, I'm going to ask you to take us off the air, and then we will come back in some period of time into open session where if there are votes to be taken, we'll take those votes, and then we will adjourn. So we'll be back in a little bit. We have a procedural issue. We didn't vote to go into executive session before going off the air. I feel it's important that we do that before going off the air. So why don't we go ahead and do that? So I'd like to, I guess I gotta read this. Okay, I hereby declare that under General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A2, the purpose of the executive session will be to conduct negotiations with non-union personnel, and that a discussion of the foregoing in open session could compromise the purpose for the executive session, and that the board shall return to open session at the conclusion of the executive session to vote. So
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. It's a roll call vote. Mark?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Jim, yes. Nancy?
Yes.
And David?
yes.
Okay, so 5-0-0, we're now in executive session. So now, Patrick, let's go off the air and again. Thanks, Patrick. So we're back on the air in open session. We've just come out of executive session where, as I said on our way in, we negotiated a non-union contract specifically with the town administrator. The board had conversations about what we should be doing, given the job that Jim has been doing for the last 3 years, as he's 3 years out of 5 in a contract right now. And our view is that given the competitive pressures around us, what the towns around us are paying town administrators and the like, and coupled with the great job you've done, Jim, that it's important to extend the contract. So what we've done is we've negotiated the contract in our document 1034, which is going to be on file here in the Selectmen's office. And what I'd like to now do is move to a vote. So if I could have a motion, please.
I'll make a motion that we endorse the town administrator's new contract as prepared in document 10-34 that will begin on July 1st, 2020 and end the end of June 2025.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
I'd just like to state that I was against extending the contract. There's 2 more years left in the current contract, and I feel that we should have just left that contract as is. However, I will be voting in the affirmative, as I do often when it comes to appointments and when it is the board as a whole deciding this, because I don't want to reflect any lack of confidence in the abilities of the current town administrator.
Thanks, David. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 500. The motion passes. Jim, congratulations, and thanks for everything you've been doing. You've done a terrific job. and we look forward to continuing to work with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
And that concludes our agenda for this evening, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. We're now adjourned. Thank you and good night.